Lucius the Eternal. Even though he may lose a fight from time to time, he has a very neat trick of reappearing, even after death. This is part due to Slaanesh blessing him with eternal life, with the caveat that whoever kills him slowly morphs into Lucius rather painfully, adding yet another face to his chaotic armour. Hello and welcome. This doozy of a dude is packed full of detail that I can't wait to paint. So without further ado, let's get cracking. A list of all the paints used to paint this chosen warrior of Slaanesh is on screen now. These are just our recommendations, so feel free to swap out any of these for something similar in your collection. Along with all the additional tools we've used today. If you're new to painting and want to know more about the paints and techniques used in this video, check out the Painting Essentials playlist on our YouTube channel. I've gone ahead and undercoated Lucius in Mechanicus Standard Grey as a midtone to help apply the lighter tones, while easily darkening the others to help out later on. I'll be painting this Eternal dude in sub-assembly, keeping the whippy arm, backpack and head off the model, along with a base to paint that recent Iron Hands victim, keeping everything perfect. And that's what I'm going to do first by painting his flawless face-enriched armour. I'm thinning 1 part Corvus Black with 2 parts Lahmian Medium to create the perfect mix to start building up the black armour. When the first layer dries, you'll see the raised facial details will keep their lighter undercoat colour, which I'll use as a guide for highlighting later. But before that, I'll do the same thing with Abaddon Black to darken the armour to a clean black with a hint of grey on the raised details. That's the armour base coated. Now to focus on the skins and other fabrics. I'm going to start with this fabric wrap hanging off the belt with Deepkin flesh, giving this area 3 layers of paint for a lusciously smooth finish. With that all wrapped up, Demonette hide for a purple base coat for the stylish skins found on Lucius's leg and backpack. Lovely stuff. With the darker purple tones blocked in, I'll reach for Slaanesh Grey next to block in the loincloth for a bit of tonal variation, along with applying this to his face and hands for a lighter tone to his skin. With his face and hands, I've left some undercoat on show in the recesses that'll help add some bluish grey tones to the deepest areas across his skin. Finally, I'll use Phoenician purple to paint the fabric around his belly, giving it a vibrant pop against the rest of the colours, leaving us with the first set of base coats, and with that sorted, I'm going to finish off the skins before moving on to the rest. First things first is to shade things down, and 1 part Magos purple mixed with 2 parts contrast medium will be perfect to tone down the recesses. I've started with a full layer on all the fabrics and skins, both his and whoever he's wearing. On the flatter parts, I find pulling the brush in long strokes right off the end of the fabric can avoid pooling and leaves a cleaner finish. If in doubt, a trusty damp brush will soak up any persistent pools. Then, once dry, I'll be more specific about where I'll add this, with a few more layers of paint. This will strengthen the shading in and around any major folds to create added depth. Now the shading is sorted, I want to bring back the colour a little from the shading. Using each fabric's base colour, I'll thin the paint slightly with a drop of water so it has some transparency to it, and remove the excess off the brush. Nice. Less is certainly more. Pulling the brush towards oneself in long strokes is going to keep the area looking smooth, while the thinner paint lets some of the darker tones come through. This is then finished off with a quick edge highlight with the same paints to define them even more, and preparing them for lighter colours to come. I love using paints like this. Having them thinned like this lets me control how much colour is used and where, building it up gradually in as many layers as I like until I'm happy with the outcome. Right then, let's finish these off. Slaanesh Grey is going to be the backbone to lighten the darker skins, adding this as an edge highlight to the Demonette hide. This will also be perfect as a fine highlight over Lucius's scarred face, picking out every fine detail with the care Slaanesh craves. And a little highlight on his hands never hurt either. While we're highlighting with Slaanesh Grey, I'm going to start building the crispy edge highlights we all love on Space Marines across the black armour, using the previous lighter tone on the faces of the armour to guide these lines. And to make the faces look like they're really pushing their way out of his armour, a little extra is added to the most raised facial details by pushing the paint towards the eye sockets. This will look a little patchy at the moment, but once this is all over, I'm thinning 1 part Abaddon Black with 3 parts Lahmian Medium for a shade to layer over the whole armour, toning down the highlights, and leaving the faces to look like they're really wanting to leave their power-armoured prison. Next, I'll make a mix of 1 part Karak Stone with 3 parts Lahmian Medium to create a light, transparent colour that will tint the loincloth for a more skinny feel to the purple undertone. Pushing the paint towards the lighter parts increases the contrast between the dark and light, while helping to apply the paint more evenly. Once that's finished, Deepkin Flesh will be my smallest highlight colour. This is mostly used to dot the peaks of highlighted areas to attract the eye, going over everything that has been painted. power armor, his face, all those questionable fabrics. The loincloth gets a full edge highlight and, for the faces, a few smaller lines following the scratch lines. If there are any slightly larger dots or lines that appear on his armor, these can be cut back in with Abaddon Black. Excellent stuff. Now let's make these a little more unnatural in one last step. We're going to want 1 part Kroxigor scales and mix this with 4 drops of contrast medium to get a super light colour to offset the purples with a hint of faint blue. Apply this lightly over the faces across the armour to subtly add blue tones into the purple for an extra chaotic effect. Coming along nicely, I'd say. Those highlights have really made everything stand out. The straps on his legs are up next with a layer of dryad bark for a flawless leather. Then I've thinned down 1 part dryad bark with 2 parts Lahmian medium to be applied over the purple leathers on his torso, darkening the colour and adding shading to the deeper areas. I'll follow up with a chunky edge highlight of Gorthor Brown on all of these leather details, rounded off with Karak Stone for a final thin highlight. Then we can call the leathers complete. I'll clean up the Mini with Abaddon Black on all the areas that haven't been painted yet, leaving a clean black line between the details. Then, as we've used a few different types of paint, I'll add an all-over coating of Lahmian medium to give everything the same finish. And with that, I've conquered the bulk of the torso. With that done, let's move on to the tongues and the whip. I'm starting this off with Barak Nar Burgundy to base coat the whole whip all the way up to his hand, where Screamer Pink will finish off the top of the whip just above the hand and slightly underneath. Along with the tongues, can't forget those tongues, and the rope attached to his Emperor's Children symbol on his waist. For the whip, we'll want a blend here where the 2 colours meet for a seamless transition. I'll remove as much Screamer Pink off the brush on a palette by twisting the bristles for more control. And when ready, lightly push the paint towards the hands where the 2 colours meet. Having a soft touch is handy here to avoid too much paint being added. We just need to lightly glide over the area several times for the colour to intensify. Easy peasy. With the blend sorted, an all-over mix of 1 part Luxian Purple with 1 part Contrast Medium will tie in the base coats together, adding 2 to 3 layers after each has dried. This time more towards the top for a darker end to the whip, leaving a sweet transition of purple tones and a surface set for highlighting. I'll also apply this to the tongues, building up the colour towards the tip, and to really get the colour on the end, I'll be using 1 last layer, but this time right out the pot. With the blend in place, let's get the fine brush out for all those fine lines. I'm using Slaanesh Grey first to highlight the purple along the sides of the whip. Up next, Emperor's Children highlights the Screamer Pink parts, and by letting this cross over the previous purple highlights of the whip and tongues, merges these seamlessly together. A fun little detail across the whip are these pink dots. To start these off, I'll get a small amount of Emperor's Children on the tip of my brush and add these little dots randomly across the ridges. To brighten them further, a small dot of Fulgrim Pink right in the middle of the previous ones will make these truly pop. With excellence. While we have this bright pink, I'll be adding a few extra small highlights and dots across the previous pinks. I like to add an optional extra layer of thinned Luxian Purple over the whip to blend all the colours together. Cracking stuff! The 2-toned whip is complete. Next up, I'm painting the 2 different coloured stim vials. Starting with either Caliban Green or Cabalite Green, paint a base coat, adding a second coat if needed to begin with. I'll also paint the tubes that link to his face to match the central vial at the same time. To really bring these to life, we'll want to show off the liquids inside. So to do this, I'll thin some Abaddon Black with a drop of water to help it flow, and roll off any excess paint by twisting it on our palette, giving us way more control when painting. To get a straight line, I'll be using this horizontal line on the sub-assembly holder as my guide, as he's not on a base. When ready, carefully paint a fine line onto the vial that's parallel to the ground, filling in the top to show off how empty it is. Feel free here to paint these full, half full, or even empty. I've left 2 of the 5 vials on mine without a line, for a fuller look to the stim packs. Next, let's crack open the Warpstone Glow for the Caliban Green vials, and to highlight the tubes, along with Sybarite Green to go over the Calibite Green. Thin these down slightly with a drop of water, giving us something that will flow nicely off the brush. I'll be pulling the brush down towards the base of the vial, building it up to leave a brighter colour at the base, along with this sweet gradient. Then, to reinforce the line painted earlier, I'll paint one just underneath it to make it stand out. For true excellence, on another level, we'll need some reflection lines in the same colour by painting 4 vertical lines around the vial like so. Then, to add some extra brightness, Moot Green will provide the much needed punch on all the green vials and a final highlight on the tubes, while Gauss Blaster Green has you covered for the teal ones. Repeating the same process as before, just a little more precise and finer, boosting the colour. As a little extra detail, I've also added a few micro dots going upwards to represent some little bubbles bubbling away. Lastly, a couple of dots at the top of the reflection lines with Deepkin Flesh, along with a final thin line down those reflection lines, will add the extra layer of shine to the vials. Then, to blend everything together, a light shading of either Beltane green or Celia green shade that have been thinned slightly with a drop of water. And a little tip is to hold the parts upside down and let gravity pull the paint towards the top of the vials for a truly superb blend. A cleanup with Abaddon Black later, and the vials are looking magnificent. With those done, it's time to get our shine on. For the metallics, I'll base coat the silver trim on all of his armour with Iron Warriors for a deep dark metal starter, followed by a shade of Nun Oil to deepen the recesses. Then Retributor armour for any flashy details. Medallions, sword hilts and the vial casings would all work well for this. The golds are then shaded with a layer of Magos purple to tint the metallics with a luscious purple undertone. With the metallics ready and shaded, let's make them truly sublime. First off, I'll reinforce the golds with a highlight layer of Liberator Gold, picking out the raised details, making them extra shiny. I find flicking the brush over the surfaces, a bit like a dry brush, like this, will leave the recesses with that lovely shading inside. Once that's done, finish off with an edge highlight of Stormhost Silver across the gold and silver details on the Mini. Followed by my favourite trick with metallics, a second coat of Nun Oil over the silvers to deepen these further. Excellent stuff. The armour is now fully complete. Now, to the sword. Ironbreaker is going to start off the blade as a bright silver base. Next, I'll thin down 1 part Luxian Purple with 2 parts Contrast Medium, and apply this over the opposite sides of the blade. Pulling the paint from the middle to the ends like so for the first colour on this iridescent blade, where a mix of 1 part Coxscore Scales with 2 parts Contrast Medium is applied to the opposite ends of the purple. Stormhost Silver will pick out the sword edges and then paint the central line down the blade. Keep a steady hand here while you're doing this, as this can be shaky work. You could leave the blade here if you're happy with it. However, I want something shinier. So I'll use the side of the brush to pull the paint towards the opposite sides of the shading very lightly for a brighter metal. Repeating the process until I'm happy with it, leaving an iridescent beauty of a blade worthy of Slaanesh's blessings. Lucius is almost done. All he needs now is a little bit of soul in his eyes. We want a little bit of Deepkin Flesh on the tip of our brush. Then adding 2 little dots into the sides adds the whites to his blackened eyes, framing the pupils. Basing time, and Lucius has a very fitting Dead Iron Hands guy on there that I'm going to show you how to paint quickfire style. So first up, Corvus Black undercoat on everything. Then paint all the metalworks with Iron Warriors, dry brush Ironbreaker, followed by an all over shade of Nun Oil, followed by Astro Granite all over the base, adding a Nun Oil wash when this is dried. Next I'll dry brush the bases with Demonite Hide, Slaanesh Grey and Deepkin Flesh. Bish bash bosh, the base is done. A fitting stage for the Eternal to fight his many challenges. With him completed, I can sit back now and bask in the glory of one so blessed by Slaanesh. A champion of the highest order, conquered by my hands. For more painting videos, head on over to our YouTube channel. Or if you need more hands-on help, you can always pop to one of our Warhammer stores where our friendly staff will be more than happy to help. Thanks for watching, and you know what? After conquering the paint job on Lucius, even I feel eternal. Oh no, wait, something feels off. Oh no. Ciao for now.